First, let's start with this case. On New Year's Day this year, 2 days ago, we had biscuits and gravy for breakfast. During the meal, my husband told me that he wanted me to be firmer with him about things he tends to procrastinate on. Today, I decided to make biscuits again and pulled out the leftover gravy from New Year's. When he saw what I was doing, he got upset, reminding me that he doesn't like eating leftovers and said he'd just make something else. Then he asked our voice assistant how long gravy is typically good for. When it responded with 2 to 3 days depending, he said, "See, even she says it's bad." I told him I'd make fresh gravy, but I didn't. Instead, I reheated the leftover gravy, knowing it was still safe to eat. Once he finished eating, he went through the trash, looking for the container to see if it was the old gravy. When he realized it was, he yelled at me for lying to him. The thing is, this issue ties into something he frequently procrastinates about. He often says he needs to get better about eating leftovers, but never follows through. I also work in food service and hold a manager-level food safety certification for my state, so I know how to properly store food and determine if it's safe to eat. I realize I shouldn't have lied to him, but I didn't want to waste perfectly good food or do extra unnecessary work, especially when he had asked me to help him be better about eating leftovers in the first place. Am I the one in the wrong here? Let's start judging. Everyone sucks. You're both being immature. Also, I don't think you know what procrastinate means. That's not really procrastinating, that's being an idiot. Now, he said he would make something for himself instead, and never did. That is procrastinating. When there is no food on the table, remind him how you do not like food waste with food that is not out of date, so you will continue to use leftovers. That's on you. Then explain that you do not expect insults from him when you do it. If he does not want to eat it, he does not have to. But that's all you're making. Geez, it is like dealing with a toddler. Then stick to it and don't try to trick him, because that would make aching. You're in the wrong. Everyone sucks. Just communicate to establish expectations. Everyone sucks. He was an idiot for his reaction to leftovers, but you're an idiot for lying to someone about that they're eating. He's a whole adult man. Next time he throws a temper tantrum and says he'll just make his own food, say okay. Sit down and eat your food. He'll either make his own or eat what's been prepared. That's how we handle our 8-year-old. You and your husband need to learn to communicate with each other like adults, instead of acting like petulant children. Next up, today was my niece's christening, and I feel deeply hurt and offended by how things turned out. For context, my sister, a 27-year-old woman, and her boyfriend, a 34-year-old man, welcomed their first baby last year. I was heavily involved throughout her pregnancy. I was the first person she told about the pregnancy, I scheduled her first prenatal checkup, and I accompanied her to doctor's appointments. I even took her to the hospital when she was admitted due to low potassium levels. I was there for her during the last stages of her pregnancy, and I was the one by her side during labor because her boyfriend was late. After the baby was born, I took care of both my sister and her baby when they came home, since her boyfriend works in another province. I regularly babysit about 5 days a week because I work from home while my sister has a 9-to-5 job. I also took my niece for her monthly vaccinations. When it came time for my niece's christening, I was happy to help organize everything. I planned the entire event, booked the venue for the reception, paid for half of it, made the invitations and candles, and hired the catering. I didn't expect anything in return. I was doing it because I love my niece. Last week, my sister asked if I wanted to be one of my niece's godmothers, and I instantly said yes. I was honored. Fast forward to today. During the church ceremony, the godparents were receiving candles for the ritual. I noticed that I didn't receive one. When the priest asked the godparents to stand, I quietly asked my sister if I was included, and she told me I wasn't. I wasn't listed as one of the godparents. At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, but later I learned that her boyfriend's sister, who had repeatedly declined the role, was listed as a godmother instead of me. That stung. At the reception, I was seated at the back with my niece's things and diapers, not with the rest of the family. To add insult to injury, my sister's mother-in-law approached me to ask for the baby's formula. Instead of preparing it, I responded, Why don't you let the godparents do it so they can start learning their new role? Then I walked out. I was tearing up, hurt, and overwhelmed. I immediately booked a taxi and returned to my hotel. Now my mom keeps calling, asking where I went and why I left, while my dad says I should have waited until the event was over before reacting. Honestly, I'm just tired, and I can't wait to get on my flight back home. Edit to clarify. English is not my first language, and I mistakenly used christening instead of baptism. My niece was baptized here in Cebu, while my family is from Manila. My sister met her boyfriend while working in Cebu, but she was transferred back to Manila in 2022, which is why I was able to help her throughout her pregnancy since we were living in the same town. Regarding the 18 godparents, I don't know how that works exactly, but I was told it's common here. As for why my niece was baptized even though my sister and her boyfriend aren't married, I was told that it's acceptable for a firstborn child, while subsequent children would require the couple to be married if they want them baptized. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. The way you describe the situation and have experienced the whole situation, you have been used. Implying you are going to be godmother and not delivering at the last moment on behalf of someone not doing anything is downright ridiculous. Let them stew over this. Let's look at this in a fresh new way. How wonderful that they've shown you exactly what your new place will be. Also, how amazing that they are giving you back so much of your free time. Now they have other godparents that they can call upon. Let everyone know that you will be available for holidays, birthdays, and special events. Just like any really great auntie would. Everything else is now off the table. When people show you who they really are, it's quite all right to believe them. They showed you what your place was very clearly. You no longer have to be upset about it. You can just thank them for showing you. You're not in the wrong. P.S. Anyone that has anything negative to say about your choices can get blocked for an automatic 3 months. Since you don't agree with my choices, we won't be speaking for the next 3 months. You're not in the wrong. Screw that nonsense. I totally understand how unappreciated you feel, and it will take a while to get over it. In all honesty, I'd pull back from helping out in the future and leave them to it. Next up, I, 35, have 3 children, my 10-year-old son, my 8-year-old daughter, and my 5-year-old son, with my husband, 36M. My younger brother, 29, is marrying his fiancée, Pia, 27F, in May. They've been together for a few years. While we've never been particularly close, we've maintained a cordial relationship. However, I've never appreciated how she often oversteps with my kids. For example, she has given them dessert before dinner after my husband and I explicitly said no, made remarks about how stuffy we are as parents, and frequently calls herself the cool aunt. One thing to note is that she works in fashion, and her parents often criticize her career, comparing her to her siblings who have more traditionally prestigious jobs. This has caused her to develop a sensitivity about her profession. Last night, during a family dinner at my parents' house, the conversation turned to my kids' school and extracurricular activities. My oldest son participates in soccer, piano, and karate. My daughter takes classical dance, art classes, and swimming lessons, while my youngest son is involved in classical singing and basketball. They also all attend extra math classes once a week. For context, I regret not being enrolled in activities as a child, and I don't want my kids to miss out on opportunities. My husband and I believe these activities can teach them time management skills and may even spark a lifelong passion. Additionally, we think they might enhance their college applications down the road. Of course, we also expect our children to excel academically. They all perform well in school without much effort, but we want to ensure they develop good study habits and work ethic rather than simply coasting through school. During dinner, my daughter began talking about her weekly schedule. Pia commented, "Wow, I can't believe you keep them so busy. They're just kids." My husband responded, "It's important for them to be well-rounded." Later, when my son mentioned how much he had studied for a math test, Pia added, "It can't have been that important. You're 10. You should tell your parents to let you relax." At that point, I became annoyed. I said we want them to build good habits so they can actually be successful in the future. When you have kids, if you want to raise them differently, That's your choice." Pia became visibly upset and left the room. She later told my brother that she thought I had implied she was a failure. That wasn't my intention. But my brother was angry and said I had been too harsh, knowing how sensitive she is about her career. My parents also felt I had overreacted and taken her comments too seriously. On the other hand, my husband believed I wasn't in the wrong. He argued that Pia had no right to critique our parenting, especially since she doesn't have children of her own, and that maybe this would deter her from offering unsolicited advice in the future. I did feel bad for upsetting her since I hadn't meant to insult her profession. However, I also felt somewhat justified, considering her ongoing criticism of how we raise our children. Since many people assumed my comment about raising kids to fail referred to extracurricular activities, I want to clarify that I was talking about studying. Pia's remark about my son's math test is what triggered my response, as I believe it's crucial for children to develop solid study habits. I do not think that kids who aren't involved in extracurricular activities are destined to fail. My point was simply that studying is a key part of setting children up for success. Here's some additional context I shared in the comments. We don't force our children to continue extracurricular activities. They know they can quit if they ever feel overwhelmed or lose interest. And I've reminded them of this numerous times. Our kids chose their activities themselves and seem genuinely happy participating in them. They often share fun stories about their classes and have made many friends through these activities. When I say we want them to excel in school, I mean we want them to perform to the best of their ability, given that they're currently capable of excelling. If they ever struggled despite trying their best, we would never punish them, and they know we would have an open conversation if that happened. Since several people asked about our kids' schedule, here's a typical weekday for them. 8 a.m., wake up, shower, and have breakfast. School starts at 9 a.m. and is a 5-minute drive away. 3:30 p.m., school ends. They play outside with friends until about half an hour before their afternoon activity. 5 p.m. 40 p.m., activities, start and end times vary slightly. We're usually home by 7 p.m. at the latest. 7:30 a.m., dinner, during which we watch a show as a family. 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., homework or free time. Our oldest son often chooses to do extra homework, but I've repeatedly told him he doesn't have to. If the younger two don't have homework, they spend this time playing or helping with simple chores. They receive an allowance. Sometimes they practice music or watch TV during this time. Bedtime. On weekends, the schedule is more flexible. If they don't have morning games or recitals, they spend the time practicing or relaxing. Saturday afternoons usually involve some classes until 4 p.m. Afterward, they play freely or have play dates until dinner, which is followed by family time, such as movie or game night. Sunday is mostly unstructured, allowing the kids to do whatever they want unless there's a family event or a makeup class. I plan to have a conversation with my kids tomorrow to ensure they're happy with their activities and to reassure them they wouldn't be failures if they chose to quit. I'll update on how that goes. Added update: after considering everyone's feedback, I reached out to Pia and we met at my brother's place to talk. I started by apologizing for my comment and clarified that I hadn't intended to imply she was a failure. I also acknowledged that I could have handled the situation better. She accepted my apology and shared that she hadn't taken offense to my remarks about parenting, but had been hurt by what she perceived as a jab at her career. During our conversation, Pia opened up about her childhood and how it shaped her views. She explained that her parents had been strict about certain things, like grades and gender roles, but had never supported her or her siblings in pursuing extracurricular interests. Seeing my children enjoy so many activities made her feel envious and triggered memories of what she missed out on. She admitted that she had been projecting her experiences onto my kids and trying to intervene when she saw behaviors reminiscent of her parents' approach. She had already spoken to my brother about this, but hadn't wanted me to know because she feared we'd judge her. She also mentioned she had been trying to find a culturally sensitive therapist, but was struggling to find the right fit. I told her I appreciated her honesty and was glad she opened up, but I also made it clear that her trauma didn't excuse her behavior toward my kids. For now, my husband and I have decided to maintain some distance until she receives professional help and establishes healthier boundaries. Before we ended our conversation, I reassured her that she's not a failure. She has a job she loves, is marrying someone she loves, and is free from her parents' control, which is an accomplishment in itself. She thanked me and promised to work on reining in her unsolicited parenting advice. Next up, I was married to my ex-wife for 15 years. We married really young at 18, which definitely isn't a good idea. That being said, we have 2 children together, a boy and a girl. My kids are everything to me, and even after our divorce, I make sure to be present in their lives. We have a shared custody of the children. They stay 4 days a week with her and 3 with me. I've always wanted to increase their time with me, but my ex was always against it. However, I live close enough that whenever they feel like, they call me and I go see them or take them out. I want to make sure my children have a good standard in life. As I'm quite comfortable myself as an entrepreneur, I pay a good amount of child support to them, an equivalent of $10, $5 each, monthly. This was not an order by the state, but requested by me. I want them to be able to live comfortably and not struggle. I also pay for their health care, insurance, bills, etc., and private school. However, I went to pick them up this past Thursday, as they would be with me until Sunday. When I picked them up, I noticed they were wearing some old clothes, which didn't seem like a problem. They were just home before I got them. So I thought they were just in what they felt comfortable. Unfortunately, that wasn't really the case. When we got home, and I was unpacking their bags, I noticed all the clothes they brought were old and tattered. I asked my daughter, why were their clothes so tattered? I mean, kids usually have favorite pieces of clothing, so I thought this was the case. She told me that her mother said they couldn't buy new clothes because she was saving up. Now, this was a bit strange. If they were planning an expensive situation, she could have reached out, and I'd pay for the kids. They're also my children. She never mentioned anything. I took both of them out that day and bought plenty of new clothes. That being said, this was something that really bothered me. My brother and his came by that night, and I talked to him about that. They also thought it was a very strange situation and that I should look into it. Now, I don't have the best relationship with my ex, and I'm not going to poke my nose in her life. So, I called Child Protective Services and told them what happened and that I was concerned. Here in my country, they investigate this kind of things. Well, my ex just called me and she was absolutely enraged. Asshole was the less aggressive adjective she used for me. Apparently, she was indeed saving the child support for something, but she never told me what. Regardless, she's extremely irritated, and my mother and father seem to agree that I should have talked to her first. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You send $10,000 to her every month, and out of that she can't afford new clothes for the kids? Red flag in my book. No one is saying she needs to spend all that money at once or all on new clothes. I really don't care what she's saving for as long as the kids have the things they need and deserve. $10,000 is a lot of money. She could buy clothes with $1,000 or $2,000 and put the rest into savings. The fact that she can't tell you what she's saving for is also a red flag. You're not in the wrong. I don't think a lot of people here realize what CPS does. I'm an elementary school teacher, so I'm fairly familiar with CPS, and it's not like they are some child police who rip families apart. They actually have a lot of great resources, and home visits can be incredibly helpful and shouldn't be frowned upon. You absolutely did the right thing by contacting CPS. I'm a mandated reporter, and it sounds perfectly reasonable to me. Might be in a minority here, but you're not in the wrong. You provide her about as much child support in a month as others make in half a year. No, there is zero reason for your children to wear rags. You were right to be concerned.